Hi, chat. How you doing? I'm doing fine. I have a kitty here. She leaped up just as I was about to turn on the coming soon stream title card thingy, whatever you want to call it, the starting soon screen. And now I have to deal with her. There. Kitty. Yeah. You could be a lap cat, but you cannot be a shoulder cat today, right now. Hopefully the sound's coming in through okay. I've switched up the audio again. This should be the Handcam mic, which is the secondary mic, so I shouldn't have to move the entire apparatus anytime that I want to do anything. Hopefully the sound's coming in through okay. I've switched up the audio. Ooh. That's bad. My monitoring audio or stream, whatever. Okay, kitty, it's time to go. So what I have prepared for today is a couple things that I've been wanting to work on for quite a while. I've got a couple dragon skeletons. They are a bit dusty because, yeah, it's been a hot minute since I printed these. But they cool. This was a Patreon. I cannot remember exactly which one, and I forgot to look it up before the stream. Might be... Could be any number of things. But it should be relatively simple. It is just bones all the way around. I got two of these, so two different poses. We got one a little bit more upright, one a little bit more down low. Judging by the horns, this isn't specifically a particular D&D dragon, but it's hard to tell without the skin, canonically. But yeah. I've also got a couple of things to do if we finish those up, because they are just bones, maybe a little bit of sinew stretched between the wings. I have a sorceress lady with a little tiny dragon, which is, I believe, a Reaper miniature. We've got a paladin under the Order of the Wall, the female variant from War Machine. This one is a game piece for, well, War Machine, but also D&D. It could be paladin. And I have three Ladies of the Night, also from Reaper. And it's going to be really hard to see the detailing on these things. I want to get another hand cam that is better at zooming in on close-up stuff, because I don't think this one ever will. Nah, we need a better lens for this. Put it on my to-do list. But to start things off, we will pull out our hydration station. Get a little bit of paint water in here. Using the case of bottled water I keep underneath my desk, because bottled water is a lot easier to handle and deal with than actually filling up a water container and keeping it on me, because I just won't drink if that is the case. Got a tube of brushes. If we're actually, instead of that, if we're just starting with that guy, then it'd be better to come in here with the dry brushing. We'll get a lot of mileage out of that. So a couple of dry brushes. What's a good bone color? We got bone, we got white base, which is, I think, a little bit lighter. Yeah. Unfortunately, I like to use the bone color as my highlight, so I don't really have anywhere up to go from there other than mixing some white. So we might just do some frost on top to bring it up. We will also want... We got a contrast paint here, some red. That might be good for if we paint these white. Or let's see, so green is the opposite. So do we have like a very, very light green? We have a green wash. So we're gonna need a white. That's what I'm reading into this. Do I have just a straight up white? Signs point to no. Ooh, the pink. If we just do a nice fleshy pink color. Is there any in here? Ooh, that is... Can you see that? That is a chunky paint. My man. Okay, so white might be at a premium. So... I think we're just going to have to go with that... A pink. Well, that's a whiter pink. Yeah, we'll go with the Carnal pink, and then we'll wash it down and highlight it up. With a little bit of fleshy bits. That's just a straight up red. This is a flesh contrast. Do we want to layer? That seems a bit overkill. I don't think you'll be able to see them. Okay, so we have a plan. We'll get some pink down, we'll wash it down, we'll highlight it back up to the original. And then we will wash the bone, highlight the bone. Do we have a gray for the base? We can start with the base. Got some silvers in here. I remember we had a gray last time, but it was like butts. And if we don't have a white... what's the opposite of blue? Yellow, I think? Well, I can't really base it in yellow. That would just be ridiculous. Got a brown. Brown is probably fine. Some dark green for the base. A slightly lighter but still ruddy brown. There's going to be more colors of brown than anything. If you count this as a shade of brown, then yeah. We got a real battlefield brown. Okay. So let's start with a solid base. Yep. You definitely tell there's been cats up here. All right, buddy. This one. We'll start with this one. Do you want a lazy pot painter today? Because I don't think I actually have any more of the sheets for the wet palette, and this looks pretty hideous. I'm sure they're around. I just have no idea where. So we're gonna lazy pot paint today. My week has been interesting. Oh, I got to see Superman yesterday. I liked it. A pretty good return to form for the Man of Steel, back to not Snyder. Which, kind of like Avatar, while the special effects are fine, the storytelling leaves a bit to be desired. But it was pretty campy. It was like, there's in the very first scene, Superman got beat up, so that's a little bit iffy. Superman's kind of the guy who is a bruiser. He's supposed to be relatively indestructible up to a certain point. So this is pretty far into Superman's career. He's definitely not just starting out where he's actually in a world of paper. The foes against him have grown to a certain extent to be beyond his power, able to beat him up. It usually doesn't happen off the crack with Superman. It's usually more of he kind of beats up everybody, and it's much more moral decisions than anything. And there is a lot of that throughout the movie. You can tell that Superman is, like, he does get roughed up a bit during fights, but it is very much more, oh my god, now there's two things happening at once. How is Superman going to save everybody? He can't be everywhere at once. If you ever played the original Nintendo 64 Superman, it wasn't amazing, but Superman himself did not have a health pool. Metropolis did. And the success of your mission was based off of how much of the city, and therefore the civilians, you could save from the threat that is happening. Which I thought was a really interesting and good way to show off Superman not being, you know, beatable, essentially. Like, yeah, fully destructible environments, you don't want to use that fact. You could go around slamming into buildings and just blowing everything up, but that is not the point of Superman. Not something like Alex Mercer, which didn't they announce a new prototype game coming out at some point in the next couple of years? I mean, games get canceled all the time, but I vaguely recall there being a whole thing about prototype being remade, and people were talking about like the morality of that. And yeah, Alex Mercer at the beginning of the game is not a good person. He might have been at one point, but spoilers for a game that is quite old. That's not necessarily Alex Mercer you're playing. The thing that once was Alex Mercer. I never played the second one, I'll be honest. I think that the first one might have been one of the first kind of power fantasy games, like reverse horror games, at least that I ever played, for sure. Probably not ever. I'm sure there were more playable villains before that. How Mortal Kombat or something, because you can play the good guys and the bad guys in a story mode. Granted, it's not a single player experience necessarily, but oh, there it is. As Ian Malcolm would say. Oh, I don't think I've talked about my Jurassic Park Magic deck. It is not a Jurassic Park deck. It just happens to involve a dinosaur from Jurassic World, because that's where the collaboration was. So I have Indominus Rex, which is an exercise in being able to put my grubby little hands on as many Magic the Gathering cards as possible during a game. And the closest I've come thus far was a game where I was playing against Toshiro Umezawa with all of the creature kill. And ever since I realized what the game plan was, which was keep every threat off the table. That was my entire game plan, was be the threat at the table. And the only person who was keeping me from being the greatest threat that I could be was the Toshiro guy. So I beat up one of the other 3 players down to 3 life from death, and then said, hey, I won't attack you anymore if you don't mess with me at all. And he agreed because he didn't want to be sitting there at the table waiting for a control deck to basically mill out the table. And then every other turn, I was either casting my commander, the Indominus Rex, and drawing a bunch of cards, or getting it killed by attacking that one guy. And this went on for turns and turns and turns. I must have had like half of the lands of my deck in play, with just cycling through everything. Because of the way that that deck works is you discard something to get back into your... You discard and get tokens on your commander, which makes it better, and then for each token that you have on it, when it resolves, you get a card, which is cool. Also, you just end up drawing a bunch of cards if your commander keeps getting removed. And sometimes I would just force him to take the damage or, you know, suffer the fate. And so I was just running into him every single turn, trying to jam myself down his throat. Every single turn he'd remove me. Every single turn I'd churn through like 5 or 8 cards. The goal of the deck being to touch magic cards, that is the closest that I've gotten to, because I was at risk of milling myself out. I had 3 cards left in my deck at the end of that game. Well, technically less, because the game ended soon after that. One of the players accidentally killed the guy who got a really bad hand and couldn't play anything. And then there was the other guy at 3 life, and I managed to get the Indominus Rex to stick at the 3 cards, and then kill the Toshiro player that turn. So I must have been down to 2 cards at one point. Definitely running Reliquary Tower just so that I don't have to discard if I happen to draw half my deck. What a wild card. Like, you honestly don't expect to be drawing that many cards and using them. Well, there you go. I guess if I wanted to upgrade that deck, I'd start throwing in free spells. Which sounds reasonable. I mean, don't get me wrong. Just having my commander out is the goal of the deck. Beating people up with the dinosaur. How do I want to incorporate the green? I think the green's just going to be dry brushing. We'll come back to that. For now, I want to move on to the bulk of today's paint nonsense. We want to paint bone. We came here to paint bone. Do we do the wing? Man. I always want to do the most obvious thing, like always, and then it's like, I should have done that first. So before we commit to the bone, what do we say? We wanted pink? Was pink where I was going? I think pink was the highlight. Man, I don't know what I'm doing. I just work here. Right, so I think that I've played Indominus 3 times, and that was the result of the third game, so great track record. The goal is touching magic. And also just threatening to kill somebody with a giant dinosaur coming at their face. Feels good. It tickles the Timmy in my heart. I never did a starting tweet for this. Oh well. It's only 20 minutes after. I guess I am small enough that nobody would ever intuit coming in here on their own. Even when I look up my own name under a different account, I get a whole bunch of eyelash tutorials. So I'm just going to be hard to find for a hot second. Unless people click in. For the sake of the channel, I should starting tweet. I have like 8 followers, and most of them are just due to mutualing. So it's not like anybody's actually going to come in, but best practices and all. Give me 1 sec. Clicky X. Where's my dang channel? Get the link. Get shareable link. Boom. Home. Get in here. Me painting. Bone dragons today. I guess we'll toss in the 3D model painting image. Where'd that go? What are some hashtags we could use? Hashtag painting. Hashtag VTuber. Hashtag what's another good one? .3D model. Fuck it. We're here for a good time, not a long time. All right. We'll see if if the ticker goes up. If anybody actually comes in. I doubt it severely, but let's see. Man, I have been painting miniatures on and off for how long? I must have been like a child when I walked into a Games Workshop store for the first time, saw Warhammer, became fascinated. Probably, I wasn't even a teenager yet, so I must have been 10 or less years old when my entire Christmas wish list was just get me some Warhammer models, and grandmother pulled through. She got me a tank, a dreadnought, a unit of dudes, and a transport tank. And that was my Christmas. which, you know, that's a couple $100. But I had a lot to do for that month. I got to learn how to assemble things. I got to learn what painting was. I used these cheap paints, the like oil-based ones that you could get from Michael's, because I didn't know where to get paints otherwise. Just random craft paints. These really shiny, god-awful paints. And oh man, the first time that I sat down to paint, I was trying to get blue on dudes. And first off, didn't know what primer was. Absolutely butchering these things, globbing it on, trying to get it done as fast as possible. Ended up almost passing out from the fumes because I was like 2 inches away from the model. Yeah, good times. I don't think I got high off the fumes. I think I was just suffocating. These things are harsh. Actually, that would explain a lot. I'm not going to think too deeply on how many brain cells I killed that day. But eventually, way down the line, I don't even think I had D&D miniatures first. I think the next thing in my miniature journey was War Machine. And we were all, me and the guys who were going to get into this painting league, essentially, like a let's start playing kind of thing. We all decided whether we wanted to do Warhammer Fantasy or War Machine. And a couple of the guys had done fantasy before, and so they had already sold me on that. And so that's what I voted for. But I was outvoted. They wanted to try something different, and so we went with the competing product. And that consumed probably 10 years of my life. Luckily at the time, I had just gotten my first job, so that would have been... Math is hard. It's a bunch of years ago. I'm not going to do the math. I'm not going to age myself like that. But, you know, it wasn't the old world, and Sigmar wasn't even a twinkle in Games Workshop's eye at that point. It was a live line. It was Mark I War Machine. And I had no idea what army I was going to pick. I believe that I was going through the army, like the catalog of every model that was available in the game, and Hordes had come out, and so I was looking at Trollbloods and thinking maybe that's going to be it. And I think I landed on Khador because of the giant robot aspect. We didn't even have another Trollbloods player, so it couldn't have been that. But we had... nobody was playing the Big Red faction, and I wanted to play as the guy. There's a particular character, Karchev the Terrible, and he was a man in a giant robot, and he could lead your army. That's it. I wanted to beat people up with an axe that was taller than a man. And so to do that, I had to play that faction. And to do that, we had to start with very low points. And it's like, we had an army box that you could play, which I bought because it was a good deal for as far as miniature purchases were concerned. And then I upgraded to a different guy, Vladimir the Dark Prince, who, going from the kind of easy button of Sorsha's I win the game button on her feet down to Vlad's I win the game every turn, because his spells were busted. I played back when he had 2 spells that were worth casting, and they were cheap enough you could cast both of them every turn. There was no reason not to, because if you didn't cast the second one, you got 3 armor. If you did cast it, you got 3 armor and 3 defense. Like, why would you not? And then you also cast the one that buffed your entire army's shooting capabilities. And then you just wrecked house with dudes. And apparently, I terrified my main rival with my potential for Widowmakers. Because he thought, and we all thought, that you could just strip the cortexes off of something, and then the warjacks would be useless. Oh, what a time to be alive. That's when I learned the horror of being extremely slow, the opponent being able to place terrain, which was a forest, and then having all of your good units stuck in a forest. We had one dude who played the Retribution because they were the newest army. Their rules were relatively unbalanced. And you were able to, because of the way that terrain was placed and the terrain that was available, he would take this little hill with a fence around it. The fence gave cover. His dudes got bonuses for being in cover. And his dudes didn't need to roll damage. They just automatically did damage without needing to roll for it. So all your heavy armor was garbo. Since they weren't doing anything, and since the way that he placed the terrain, he had the only ramp leading up to his guys, he'd have like 3 or 4 turns to just remove your ability to do anything to him. Yeah. So we changed the way that the placement of terrain worked so that he couldn't do that anymore. That the terrain was not a... Terrain was not a democratic process anymore. You played on the table that you got, and his win rate plummeted when he couldn't cheese the map because he was just an awful player. He was actually legitimately not good at this game. And I think part of that was because he spent the first couple of months just cheesing his victories. Like, he figured out the I win button, never got past it. I believe he dropped out of the league eventually. The league was in partner pairs, and you advanced with your partner. And I was pretty good. I only really lost to my main rival consistently. And my partner was very good at tabletop games. And so we were doing really good until the last couple matches. Shout out to Nick, who was one of my, I wouldn't say best friends, like, because we didn't hang out outside of the card shop, but he was like, if the concept of senpai existed in America, and at the time, he would definitely be that. He was the figure that I looked up to most. Kind of the guy that I wanted to be. He was cool as hell. He played some string instrument. I don't want to say bass because I know people shit on bass players, but I think it might have actually been bass. He was really good at games. He had an extremely well-paying job in tech, and so he was able to just look at a device and figure out how it worked. Man was a hero in my eyes. And for some strange reason, even it was like the first time, and this might have been a formative experience for me, he asked me before the entire pool was empty if I wanted to be his partner, which, as the kid who got picked last for sports in everything, that was the highest honor that I'd ever been bestowed. And I think that's why I tried so hard. It's probably why I got into the game so much. The surge of dopamine of being picked first in anything changed the trajectory of my life. We ended up losing the final game because we were almost tied up on points, but the guys who were running the tournament were our opponents in the last round, and so the game reasonably should have gone one more round, and if it had gone a single more round, we would have been able to break the tie. I don't remember otherwise how ties were broken, but we were tied up on victory points, and because of the way that the time at the end of the night, because it was like 5 o'clock, and we had to call it because the game was just ridiculously large and taking way too long. But they basically sat there pondering their turn, slow played it, couldn't call a judge because they were the judge, and just took the win based off of cheesing themselves. Couldn't complain to anybody because they were the ones running the tournament. And so they took first place in their own tournament. Definitely one of those, oh, we're running the event, we're going to play in it ourselves. Oh, look, we won. We're so good. I'm not bitter. For years, that the mantra between my partner and I was that we should have won that game. We were absolutely robbed of our rightful first place. This model isn't even for a particular game. This is just a cool model that I 3D printed a long time ago. Actually, since I got my 3D printer fixed, I've been back on looking for files. And yesterday, I found a campaign that was going on My Mini Factory for a bunch of undead models. And I think today's either the last day or second to last day to back it. And so I went in on it because it's really difficult to just find generic armored skeleton guys that are not like very universe specific. Like you can kind of tell, oh, this is a Warhammer skeleton guy. He's got the Egyptian trappings on, or this is a War Machine guy. They've kind of got a little bit of steampunky elements or a particular sword shape that gives it away. But these ones, while their swords are, I think, made of bone, like, that's generic enough for me. So I could just kind of use those in D&D, have a skeleton army. And actually, that's only the elite ones. The regular guys just had, like, pikes and generic, not even fantasy armor, just generic armor. So, dudes. And so I backed that project, and I looked at their other stuff, and they had this really cool Hydra that I thought was this month's offering for the monthly subscription. Turns out it wasn't. So when I backed it, I got a 2-head dragon, which I am not disappointed in. If there's one thing that I like, it's things with multiple heads. If there's 2 things that I like, it's dragons. And so if there's 3 things that I like, it's dragons with multiple heads. The other thing that I got was that the Hydra that I wanted, as a subscriber, you got 40% off on the store. And so I was able to take that and buy the set that the Hydra came in. So I had it. I got it anyway. Wasn't going to let that slide. So I got everything that I wanted. It cost a fair penny, but yeah, you know, you see something cool, you want it. And so that's probably the next thing that I want to print is either the skeleton dudes or the Hydra. Oh, I was showing off the campaign to my friend at work, and he, like, he's the only person that I've talked to and nerded out on that is, he doesn't have, like, the kind of autistic rant back or trying to absorb information like that. He's just so nerdy, like closeted nerdy, that he's super interested in the process. And so he wants to, when I get the files and start to print them, he wants to come over for a day and just watch the process of prepping models for 3D printing, which is like amazing. I don't think that anybody's ever been like just wanted to hang out and watch me do stuff, which instantly puts him as top tier friend in my opinion, as me owning things and having very niche tactical strengths in painting or depth perception. That's my entire substitute for personality. I own cool things. And nobody's ever wanted to see them before. Like, I show them off, they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. Anyway, back to what we were obstinately talking about or here for. That's the problem with Magic friends. If they're only into Magic, they're only into Magic. They don't want to hear about other stuff. It's kind of a problem. There's no just generic nerds anymore. Everybody's got their own particular hobby. I'm a generic nerd. I'm into all kinds of stuff. And I love listening to other people nerd about their own stuff. But it's hard to get... The kind of person who wants to nerd about their own stuff is the same kind of person who doesn't want to listen to your nerd stuff. So I need somebody who's a good listener in addition to being a good talker. And that's just somebody charismatic. And that is not generally the type of person who's also very nerdy. And those people become content creators. Not me, though. I did it without the charisma. Actually, one of the reasons that I wanted to get into streaming was just to meet more people that might be in the sphere that I might relate to. I don't need to reach 1 million followers. I just want to be able to collab with people of a similar mind. Is that too much to ask? Brings to mind, when do I start to reach out to people? Hi, I'm Altamir. I have 1 subscriber. Would you like to do a collab? People are going to be like, no, I have more than 1 subscriber. I don't need you. And then I'm like, but my entire bit is having a parasite on my head. So parasiting your viewers is lore accurate. Please let me steal some viewers. I don't think that's going to go over as well as it would conceptually, but I've been trying to live my life with more whimsy, which means that I have to make myself my own main character. And in my own story, that's a successful gambit. Or it could be a humbling experience. It's a crapshoot. I'm willing to take the risk. Put me in, coach. Give me the thing. All right. That's the wings. Now we get to move on to my favorite part. Dry brushing the bones. I miss a spot under the wing. Too wet. So we want to get just enough paint to show up without it being moist enough so that it gets into cracks. Because if you dry brush bones, then it looks more skeletal-like. So I don't know if you can see that, but just dry brushing gives it these nice contours and low spots. And then if you come in slightly afterwards with just a slightly brighter color to highlight the very tips of things, then it comes out looking a lot more three-dimensional. So again, it's all about dry brushing and washing. Well, not even washing. I don't think I'm going to wash this. What I could do is get all up in here, kind of like that, and then go in with a wash, bring everything down, and then come back in with the base color, bring it up. But seeing as how I'm just trying to get paint on dude, I might skip that part. Tabletop quality. I want this to look fine from 4 feet away. It doesn't have to be perfect. Not everything needs to be a centerpiece model. There are 2 of these things. Just having 2 moderately painted figures is still going to be looking better than what we started with, or having 2 immaculately painted figures. That's not the goal here. Oh. You see that? That's not good. What it does allow me to do, though, is get into this little crevice. So he is obviously pinned in place. I have pinned the tail on this donkey. We'll come back to that. I'll definitely have to fix that once I'm done. I don't want to put glue on this in the middle of painting because I'll nudge it and that'll break the contact of the glue, which will just make it a messy nonsense thing. So I also don't necessarily want to have to touch up the base a lot, so I'm going to be moderately careful doing that down there. I mean, we're going to have to touch up bits anyway, but reducing the amount of afterwork is a good consideration when just going nuts on something. Oh, did you see that Stranger Things 5 is coming out in a couple months? The series has had its ups and downs, but has overall been quite enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to the final season, what is listed as the final season. I've been following these kids since they were like 10 or whatever. That chest cavity's got a little bit, I had to push in a little bit too hard, so we're gonna have to go in with some wash and bring that back down. It's fine. So you can see inside there, see that leg back there? You only need to get a little bit of paint on it because that is in deep shadow. Nobody's ever going to see that leg. So if you just get the most cursory of touches on it, that will be good enough. You really got to get the outside. So the reason that I fully assemble every model is because then you learn where the lights are coming from and then what parts you can generally ignore. Too much. Too much. Still probably too much, but it's fine. I've got a bigger skeleton dragon eventually that I want to paint. Before I got into 3D printing, there was a Kickstarter for these giant dragons, like 120 millimeter base dragons. And so I really, really wanted them. They were like $60 a model or something. I had a job at the time, so it wasn't ball busting. I didn't have to go into debt for it, but it was definitely way more expensive. And that's when I figured out that, it'd probably be easier to figure out 3D printing. And when the dragons actually started shipping, they did send out, for some reason, the files. That was just part of the Kickstarter. And since it was so early on in the Kickstarter lifespan, and it's not something that I expected, like I got the files and was like, okay, like, what do I do with these? And then when I got into the 3D printing, I received the 2 dragons that I had bought, and they were really cool. I love them. I think I put together one of them. The other one's still in a box. And then I've got the files for all of them, so I've actually 3D printed a whole third one and painted it. I haven't posted pictures of it yet, but I guess I could. But he looks really cool. He's a big old red dragon. It took a couple weeks to paint because I wanted to do the best that I could as a showpiece. And that mother used all of my talent in airbrushing and hand painting, and like it looks good. It looks very good. He is definitely final boss worthy. I keep him in the display cabinet in the living room. If I ever really want compliments, I can point nerdy friends at it, and they will say, I will tell them that I painted this, and they will be impressed. Not this, though. This one's fine, but this isn't going to be winning any golden demons. This is just skeleton. This is just bone dry brushing 101. It's fine. Everything is fine. I'm going to be fine. Again, this is a hobby. I don't need to succeed at this. I just need to learn something along the way. I definitely am. Today I hopefully fixed the audio issue that plagued me from last time. The double sound coming from the other speaker. I hope I didn't accidentally ruin some gameplay, but I haven't bothered to go back and look at any of my stuff for a second. This is fine. I'm sure it's fine. Ooh, it's getting warm in this room. Give me 1 second. Let me turn on a fan. Can you hear that? You might be able to hear that. Do I have... There. That actually might, I should have had that setting on from the start. But if it's not on, then you might be able to hear the cats. I don't know if it changes my voice quality at all. That's the voice, what is it called? It's the Elgato one specifically, voice focus. So it's AI that is supposed to remove background noise, which I think it does rather well. But depending on the amount of noise that it has to reduce, it can also actually mess with your voice, which is not my favorite thing. So I haven't played around with it a lot, but it is the reason that I bought this mic was to play around with it. Again, just want to learn something. Yeah, I'm seeing the vision here. I can see where this is going. It's is a dragon. It's a skeletal dragon. One of the so this is really funny. The skeleton dragons suffer from the conservation of ninjutsu, which is the theory that um, one ninja is a deadly foe that will like is a serious threat to the heroes. Um, 12 ninjas, you would think, would just put everybody in the dirt, but no. Due to a combination of fighting, coordination, and narrative focus, essentially. If you have too many ninjas on the screen, then they just become minions and you just beat them up. I love tropes, learning about them, watching videos on them. Yeah, it's I'm not going to say a hobby because how could watching videos be a hobby, but learning about that kind of stuff, the being able to spot tropes and narrative devices in media. Is that just media literacy? Is my hobby media literacy? It's not a bad hobby to have. I've thought about seeing if there's a class at the local community college for media literacy, being able to dissect movies and TV shows and find the message in them. I think that I'm okay at it, but sometimes I just turn off my brain and can't figure out that, oh, this is a allegory for the oil something. Like, what is the message of Pacific Rim? Uh, Giant Robot Go Smash. I don't know if there's a message beyond that, but that's what I took away from it. The only thing that can defeat giant monsters is giant robots. If this is Skeletal Dragon, why tongue? Why does he have a tongue in there? The only bit of flesh, apart from tattered wings, is tongue. Was that completely necessary? Does the other guy have a tongue in there too? Yep. They got tongues for some reason. I'm going to resist the urge to call them Bone Daddy or something, or just bone lesbians because of the tongue. My cousin would be disappointed in me. Speaking of my cousin, in a couple months, sometime soon, I'll be taking a quick vacation for about a week. I don't make any money off of this, so I don't feel bad about taking time off of it. I don't stream for anybody in particular, so I don't feel bad about it. So I'm just going to take my vacation. Burnout? Don't even know her. I am seriously considering sending a direct link with no real context to one girl that I was interested in. um, who is into VTubers when I decide to do a karaoke stream. Just like I'm just going to leave this here kind of thing. Because she was uh, I've done karaoke in front of people twice. Um, well, okay, so technically more than once because of her, but she was the only one who tried to get me to do karaoke and succeeded. And without her, I don't think I'd even have the confidence to consider doing it at this point. But that was where the first person to say, "Oh, good voice," was, which was required for me to be where I am now. And so even if I don't like my voice, if I don't think it's very good, I can think back to that and be like, maybe I'm incorrect. Maybe my voice is fine and I just don't like it. It's just like attraction. Like people have preferences for who they would date, and my preferences are much more of the female variety. And so everybody has the type of person that they want to date, and I am not my type. And learning that was a very good thing. Uh, Major self-esteem boost. It's like, well, somebody might. Not me, but somebody. Somebody who's not me. And I'm not trying to attract myself. There's somebody for everyone, so they say. I mean, there's what, like 4 trillion people on the planet estimated? So even if your chance of finding somebody compatible is 1 in a million, that's still, there's still like thousands of people in the world. So if you live in a densely enough popu pop, water. Densely populated enough area, then eventually you'd meet somebody compatible who would find you attractive. And sometimes it's a cultural thing. Like way back in the day, noble people were attractive because they had the money and their physiques were not particularly good. But, if you're wealthy enough to be a little pudgy, then you're wealthy enough to support a family. I'm already eating enough for 3. Okay, so as we move closer to these wingtips, I'm going to have to switch to a different brush. I don't think I have a smaller dry brush, which could be a problem. I'll just have to dry brush with a regular brush and pray. This is going on a little bit too moist, actually. At a certain point in most of my recordings, a second, like my viewership number will go from 1 to 2. And I know one of those is me monitoring because it at the beginning of the stream, when I click in, it goes from 0 to 1. So I don't know if the second is just a lurker or if it is a bot, or if YouTube is registering myself twice for some reason. And there's no real way to tell. Afterwards, I can look up and see, oh, how many concurrent viewers, and it'll say one. So I think it is just registering me twice, and I am void shouting still. But the hope is that someday it'll go up to 3, and somebody will say something. Nobody that I've talked to, though. We had one person in the first stream. I've tried to tell a couple trusted friends who are into VTubers and would understand self-censoring about it, and none of them have bothered to show up. Thanks for the support, kids. When I learned that one of those friends was doing his own streaming, I showed up for a stream, the very next one. I even gave him a Twitch Prime subscription. But they got almost immediately got extremely busy and haven't streamed in a while. And so when I told them that I was going to start streaming, they kind of were a little bit more into it. They're like, oh, yeah, I need to get back into streaming. We talk about our problems and things that had come up. And yet, at a certain point, when somebody asks you for help, you need to ask yourself, would they help me in the same way? And if you know in your heart of hearts that they wouldn't, or if they proved that they wouldn't, then it is morally acceptable to not help them out. You can if you're a bleeding heart or just that kind of person. But if you're having a tough time just surviving, you do not need to help everybody. You can just let things go. Because sometimes you just don't have the energy to help yourself and somebody else. It is definitely a don't burn yourself to warm the village. Or don't light yourself on fire. That's the saying, right? Don't light yourself on fire to warm the village. Ooh, I thought dry brushing was going to go by quick. I brought so many things to paint. And these are just the ones that were already primed. I severely overestimated my capabilities. I think it's because last week when I did the big model, it had so little detail on it. It just took like 45 minutes just to blob some paint on, do a quick dry brush, and call it a day. These guys, though, quite detailed. And by that, I mean there's just a lot of different angles you have to brush stroke in. I hope that you're all enjoying the BGM, specifically the lack thereof. I still cannot be bothered to find some DRM free background music yet. I mainly wanted a low impact, relaxing stream. And after just completely spacing out on creating the waiting room for mouthwashing until literally 5 minutes before the stream started, I didn't want that stress in my life. But as we are on a journey of constant improving, I'll look into it next time. Still don't have a intro or exit, but we'll see if we can get some BGM. I don't know what would I want? Something without lyrics. Something a little bit, do I want something uplifting or something more creepy? The starting music is more on the creepy side. but I don't know if that is actually a good thing. I've heard nothing about it, so I've just been running with it. There's actually a version of that opening with vocals. I just really like it without. The sirens and eventually bell ringing. I'm glad that I heard the version without lyrics first because um, the version with lyrics is so much different. What do people use for that? Like, not SoundCloud. Spotify's going to just be a bunch of nonsense. That's definitely a question I need to Google. What program do people use? What program or site do people use to get their DRM free background music from? Audio stock? I think audio stock's a word. Need to figure out if that's a subscription or if I can use some free stuff. Oh, right. Wouldn't doesn't audio stock have the thing where it just like yells out the name audio stock if using the free version? Maybe I would have to buy the license for it, like a commercial license. I don't know how any of this works. Literally floundering here. So we'll figure it out. In the meantime, find your favorite BGM, preferably Hololive themed. Just have it playing in the background. Sorry, at a certain point, you need to, or at least I hold my breath for very specific hand motions because I don't want to bob and weave and mess up what I'm doing. So it's very controlled. I know that I'm on the very edge of the camera. It's just that, like, right here, there is friggin' a table leg. And you could do this kind of splitsy thing, but that's not as comfortable. Oh, suffering for our art. The reason that I went on a BGM torrent just now, I've had the Kiara and Laplas Fake Heart cover playing in my head all day. How long will it take me to make a sound or a cover all on my own or an original song, like start to finish, knowing nothing and just like Googling all the answers, just scratch making my own song? That'd be quite the interesting thing to have if I ever re-debut with a real model. Just like, hey, this is my new model. Look, I can move. Hey, the BGM, I wrote that. That's me singing it too. I have talent. Listen to me. I think that my decision to not have a formal debut because Why would I? As a random indie male, not already in the business, not having a full model, why would I start with an expensive, stressful debut stream? Doesn't sound like a recipe for success for me. Sounds like a good way to get myself in the hole even further. The money hole, that is. Oh, the other problem with sitting this way is I can't see the phone screen with chat on it, so I might miss if somebody actually says anything for a hot second. Oh, suffer. Almost done with this wing. It's the base colors. Nice. Specifically, I have to remember to do the underside of wings. I've definitely forgotten large swaths of a model because it's on the underside or in a hard to reach place or just not where you'd see it from the top down. I'm not going to say it's embarrassing because nobody notices for the most part, but it's a pain in the butt when you put away a paint. You move on to the next thing. You're halfway through. You're twisting your guy around to see, and you're like, "Oh, big black spot, big black line, need to fix." And God forbid you forget it for a second time, because then you just, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Why wasn't I paying attention either time? The wash will make this look better, right? Wash hides all imperfections. So a camera for hand cams needs to have automatic adjustment and the ability to find what I'm looking for. The Google is a little bit unhelpful because more people do vlogging than anything else. So a hand cam, it interprets as a portable camera that you hold in your hand, which means that it keeps recommending me these like traveling um oh yeah, this one's good because it's portable. It's like I don't need portable. I don't need gyroscopic balancing so that it doesn't move a lot. I need it to be able to find something small and zoom in on my goddamn hand. So I guess I need to Google like hand modeling something. Like these are not the hands of a model, but that's the equipment that I would be looking for. I don't want to be like some streamers who just ignore the fact that their camera is dog shit and doesn't have the right colors. Subtle shade at some people that I watch. Eventually, I'm going to need to get out of the habit of talking as if there's no consequences and nobody can hear me. Because eventually, hopefully, somebody will hear me. But at this point, nobody's going to go back probably and watch the second hand cam. Specifically, anybody who doesn't care about me or doesn't like me. In a couple of years' time, once I've got, 10 subscribers. Almost there. There was a show that I've seen clips for that gives me a particular kind of existential dread, and I don't know the name of it. It's about a guy who signs up to be like an expendable crew member on a space expedition slash mining something. Don't know exactly. And he keeps dying in horrible ways, and people just get more and more desensitized to him and his suffering. And I don't know the name of it, but it gives me a particular kind of existential dread about death. And after the first one, they put your memories in the clone. Is that really you? And like at one point, I think they're tossing the corpse in the furnace and realize that he's not quite dead yet, and they're just like, well, I think they end up tossing him in the furnace anyway. The clip cuts out right before that, but it just kind of freaks me out. Like you're in their eyes not even like worth as much as care as an animal is. You're just an expendable tool. And I think they were like having him fix something in space, and the radiation is essentially cooking him alive in there. And they're like, hey, take off your glove in the vacuum of space. I want to see what's going on down there. For science, it's just like, ugh. Actually, I got a similar existential dread for whatever reason as I think it was Alien Romulus. What's the one where the robot goes nuts and eventually gets the main character to get into the cryopod, and then reveals that he's the other robot at the end? Because that one, first off, that scene, just like no being put to sleep and knowing that you've lost and like you have nothing to look forward to, and if and when you do wake up, it's going to be bad. And then realizing that there are something like 2,000 souls there, and the only one awake is in total control and is a psychopath. So these people get on a basically an arc to a new planet. And they're going to, they've got the best of intentions, their families, they're people with lives, and they're like, I'm going to settle a new planet. You sign all the paperwork, you get in the cryopods, and when you wake up, the door is locked. Huh, isn't this supposed to be already open? And then you realize that you're not alone in your pod, and very quickly after that, this thing you have no idea latches onto your face and knocks you out again. And then you wake up, still locked in the pod, no idea what's going on for a short amount of time, probably a couple minutes to a couple hours, when you have a pain in your chest and nobody's there to help, or some guy is just standing outside watching the entire thing happen as you're overcome with pain and you're confused. You have no idea. Are you on the planet? What's going on? Am I sick? How could this be happening to me? And then your chest ruptures open. You're in an ungodly amount of pain. And then you just pass. It is beyond your control. You have nothing to do. You're entirely trapped for reasons beyond your understanding or will. You didn't do anything wrong. You're just being punished for it, and you die. That particular type of existential dread, that exact kind of loss of control, scares the hell out of me. Like, my greatest fear is locked in syndrome. Having an accident, something along the head or spinal cord, and waking up, may or may not be able to open your eyes. And yeah, you just can't do anything. You can't move. You can't talk. You're just stuck there in a hospital bed. No way to communicate. No way to change the TV channel. And then your family, through their own sentimentality, decides to just keep you alive like that because maybe they think you'll wake up someday. Maybe they think that it's better for you to be alive than to and let you just like sit there forever. Sanctity of life kind of thing. But what quality of life is that? I could not imagine. I'm gonna have to tell my parents if I'm ever in an accident and there's just like no hope that I'll ever wake up or that I will ever that I can't move and can't talk. Just don't make me sit there for the rest of eternity. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion or not, but I don't want to have to deal with it. I've been too brain rotted. My brain is not prepared for that level of sensory deprivation. There was one guy that I read about where they put a chip in his brain to allow him to um, control a video game with his mind, and he got like scarily good at it. And he essentially said, "Yeah, if this ever becomes relatively widespread, like they're going to have a second league for people with this implant because he's just too good at controlling and the reaction speed of somebody going direct from brain to interface is unfair towards people playing with manual controls." Okay, so we're essentially done with base coating. I just want to fill in some spots where a single layer just ain't going to do it. But yeah, there he is. Let's get inside the mouth because when we use the wash on the wings, we can also touch in there, and that'll make it more flesh color. What was I gonna do? I think I want to highlight the wings first because I want the glossy red bloody texture to go on over that. So let's go back to the dry brush. We'll dry brush the tips of the wings. Not the tips of the wings, the raised area on the wing flesh bits. Oh yeah, base coating just takes forever. Everything before and after that is not quite as intense. Can you tell the difference? Like this one versus this one? Like there is for sure a difference. I just don't know if you can see it. Um the wing is also getting that thing that the tail had where it's coming slightly detached. Got to be a little bit more careful with it. I'll come in here once I'm done with just a dab of super glue. But again, while I'm still working on it, I don't want to mess with it too much. I saw a tutorial video randomly, wasn't even looking for one, on how to do bare flesh, or like gory flesh texture from a professional. I might look into doing that for the other guy, get some flesh wings, and then when I the undead army files, when the big dragon in that one comes out, because that's like a ghoul dragon, so it's covered in more flesh than this. It's not just between the wings, it's also like it's got some corpse flesh all over the outside. Um, that might be a cool process to do for that guy. I just wanted to go and paint something that has been sitting on the shelf for ages, just never got around to. Speaking of Twitter, no idea speaking of Twitter, but the other day I got you know how you'll randomly get recommended somebody else's post? Um, well, I got randomly recommended one as a pop up on my home screen, and it was an incredibly passive aggressive, random, like engagement post that somebody posted. And the alert didn't tell me if it was a direct message or if it was from somebody that I knew. So I assumed that it was somebody that I didn't recognize because it also didn't have their name, or maybe it did. Anyway, so it had minimal information on it, very passive aggressive, like, hey, I'm still here if you care. And I was like, oh my God, did I personally forget something or neglect something? Or why is somebody offended at me and or my lack of response to something? I don't know what is happening. And I got this alert before my lunch break. And so I couldn't really look at it in much detail. I just got like a little blip, checked it. It's like, huh. And so I got to my lunch break, found out that it was just somebody more popular than I, just like engagement baiting. And I was like, well, I'm glad that it ended up being that and not somebody mad at me. But like, what would I have done in that situation? Would I have just been passive aggressive back? I think that's the way that I would have played that. And it's just like, sorry, legitimately, who are you? Who is this? Do I know you from a different life? I don't recognize your name. What is going on? A little bit scary at the time, though. I thought that I had forgotten somebody's name, and just like maybe I didn't respond to them. Uh, it was scary. Pink accomplished. I think I got all the bits. Okay, so now we got some contrast flesh color. This should go on relatively quickly. I don't know if contrast paints are toxic or not. Oh, that is a thick color. I am forcibly reminded how freaking strong contrast paints are. This is not a wash. Oh, I've made a mistake. This is just straight up gore. Oh well, we'll just have to get more in there. The base color is fine. you're just not going to be able to tell much of anything. Oh, well. All that effort for nothing. If I water it down slightly, I might be able to see the other colors underneath, but it's not going to be much. Yeah, it's just going to be gory for the sake of gore at this point. Well, I forgot. That's on me. Just going to be very bloody wings. Wait, two off to the side again. Can you see? There's definitely a difference if you add too much water to it. That's not awful. It's not great, but it's not awful. You know what I've been getting into recently for just no reason other than my own boredom? Warhammer Fantasy, specifically the old world stuff. I've been watching a bunch of videos from Pancreas No Work. I really like the way that he does storytelling. That guy can weave a yarn. And his clear bias towards elves and certain other races shows, and that's always fun. Okay, that might be a bit too much. Yeah, definitely a bit too much. I forgot how much contrast paints will just dominate the color scheme. You can essentially, if you use contrast paints right, substitute them for actual paint and skill, which is honestly why I got them. I just, you know, oh, should a contrast paint. Should use the wash. Now I'm committed. Committed to an asylum. Must be an hour and a half into the stream. I'm losing the ability to talk. So it appears that this size of model seems to take about 2 hours to do a good bit of stuff, which is fine. Um, I might stick around long enough to finish this exact model. I might just end it after I put the contrast on the wings because this nonsense needs to dry a bit. And it's probably fine if I stop there. Okay, man, don't just sink into the cracks. Cracks on the windows to the walls. From crenellations to the ramparts, till perspiration drips from men parts. I don't know why, but the video of Mari Mari vibing out to that song has been recommended to me multiple times on multiple accounts. And if I've got nothing better to do, I will watch it because that it is a weird bit of nostalgia and just vibing that hits. I don't know why YouTube decided that out of all VTubers, out of all corporations, out of all members of that generation, that she was the one that would be recommended to me all the time. But that's it. That is what's happening. I've got all my raids open, but I'm almost entirely unfindable. I think that people need to be subscribed to me to be able to find me on the platform and raid into me. I think that's how raiding works. So there's not really a chance that anybody's gonna dive in, even if they're like, I'm gonna go into somebody with low subscriber count. The algorithm truly is the greatest enemy of the brand new streamer. Oop, too much. As I sit here, as I just sit here, fighting with a contrast paint to do enough, but not too much. I've been out of the game so long. I remember when contrast paints were new. Are contrast paints still a thing? Are they pushed as heavily? Are they? Is the entire range still available? Am I using a relic of the past? And they don't make them anymore? Who knows? Just need to do the underside of these wings. We got some time to kill. We still got 15 minutes. I might be able to do dry brush the base. I already have the patience to just sit there and do this. Man, I don't even have music playing. I probably would have music playing if I wasn't streaming. I mean, I know how to get music into my ears but not play on the stream, but it just seems disingenuous if somebody else is sitting there not listening to music. I don't know, presumably anybody who joined would just put something on in the background or leave immediately if there's no BGM. Almost there, just a couple more. I will definitely glue down the wing as soon as I'm done with this color. Oh, I guess there was also a new season of Rick and Morty recently because I keep getting suggested those. And I haven't really watched Rick and Morty in seasons. You remember when there was the Szechuan sauce kerfuffle and everybody lost their fucking minds? That's around the time that I realized that I don't really want to be associated with that fandom and kind of bounced. And I guess there was some controversy from the voice actor. Like he might have hit his wife or something. I don't know. Seems to be a pretty common thing. I think that's also why they got rid of Hawkeye and Will Smith. Maybe Chris Brown too, but he might still actually be a thing. You probably didn't hear that, but one of the cats found her way back inside the room and wants head pats. We'll see if she jumps up on the table. Which would be a catastrophe, but at least it'd be content. All right. We got some bloody wings. I'm not especially happy with them, but it's what we got. This is the life we live in now. Oh, missed a spot. Missed a couple spots. It's probably fine. Okay. Where's the thin glue? That one? Okay. This feels like a new thing instead of the one that I'd opened from last week, but this is fine. Okay, just a little dab in there. Just a tiny bit. Come on. There. Ooh. It's not quite as liquidy as I was hoping. Not with a knife. I need a dang tool that's not a blade. There you are. Just need a little bit of. Yep. Okay. That should be fine. Now that I potentially scratched up or destroyed some of these other miniatures, we can move forward with this one. Get back on that bad boy. There. I'm successful. So a little bit of dry brushing on the base. We'll use the bigger brush for this one. We want to go up to a this height, I suppose. There we go. Just a little bit of that. Just right over the top of it. The whole thing. Really bring out those edge. A little bit around the side because the sheer cut, we can use that to our advantage. I saw for like half a second that somebody had come into the stream. I think they left, so it might just be to click through. Maybe the painting streams should be, what do you call them? Vertical. It would kind of make sense. This is the kind of content that you might expect on that. Okay, so do we want to risk the tongue being incredibly fleshy? Well, we can't leave it the way it is, so yeah, I guess. Somebody accidentally clicked in on my stream. Unfortunate for them. Okay. Just a little bit of fleshy bits. Just in the mouth. The eyes are completely sockets, so I don't need to worry about that at all. And then last thing that we need to do is a little bit of dry brush of this one just at the edge. Don't need any moisture at all in this brush. Want the least amount possible. We want just a little bit of paint. We want absolutely no paint coming off of this thing. And then just the tip. Just bring it up a little bit. Go around the sides. I'll find some places that I missed before. Or maybe I hit them with the pink. That's probably what happened. Nope, I managed to find some of the wash. That's not good. I don't want that color in here. That's not what this is. Oh, he's coming unattached to the base. All right. So the last things that I need to do is finish the contact points. By that I mean fix essentially what I've been breaking this entire time. So I can just squeeze out some glue onto the base. Squeeze a little glue into his tail. All right. And the last thing that we're gonna do, let's see if we have any black. I don't think we do, so we'll see. We need an armor wash. Because I saw in the chest area, he does need a little bit of darkening in there. I have some primer. Surface primer? Matte black? Matte black. That's what we need. No matte white. This is fine. I don't need white. We don't need white. This one, though, will need a little bit of this. Maybe more shaking. Maybe someday I'll get one of those little paint tumblers that continuously moves the stuff around. Okay. Now. Oh, how did I manage to mess that up? Did I get glue on that? Yeah, that's unfortunate. Uh, let's see. This is probably fine. Don't lift it up by the wings, you fool. That's how you broke it the first time. So just do a little bit of cleaning up in the rib cage. You know, it looks a little bit shiny off the rip, just coming out of the bottle, but that's just because the paint's wet. It does promise to be matte black, so it's going to dry matte. So it'd be easier and cleaner with a wash, but I know washes. If you wanted to do a wash for this part, you would need to do the wash and then come back in with a matte medium to remove the gloss. And that might upset the entire basis of the model. It's fine. Let me just touch up a couple ribs that got too pink for my taste. And we'll call it a day. Oh man. This is the part where I keep finding things that I messed up. And I'm just gonna keep fixing them to the end of days. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Let's get that black back in here. We're in here. Critically important for the finish of the model. Over in here. One more rib gap. Yeah. All right, so I will be able to see the imperfections in this model until the end of time, but hopefully they're not too bad, objectively speaking. And again, if you're looking at it from 4 feet away, how would you know? This had been bugging me for a minute, so I'll get that. Why are you so red? Okay, okay, we're done. We're done. It's fine. We have a dragon with fleshy wings, a base. Is better than it was. This is perfectly fine for a boss battle, or once we get the second one done, a two-bodied boss battle or two lieutenants in a very high level thing. But that's going to be it for today. I will probably plan on slowly going through my backlog for ages and ages, because I have so many models. They are so unpainted. I have virtually unlimited content, and for a just chatting stream, this is fine. Nobody chats, just me. So that'll be it for today. What else do we got coming up? Um, doo-doo-doo. So tomorrow is Arena. Look at that. I will make a thumbnail and get that up as soon as possible. Other than that, that's all I got for today. So I will hopefully see you in my next live stream. Have a good evening. Goodbye.